There's a town in Arizona where mail still arrives by mule. The closest road is 8 miles out, and yes, people live there on purpose. America is huge. Loud highways, drive-thrus, endless noise, constant distraction. But hidden between the lines of the map are places so disconnected they make Amish country feel like downtown Manhattan. And here's the twist. In a world addicted to Wi-Fi, some towns chose total offline mode. Not only did they survive, they actually did better. Why? Fewer neighbors, cheaper land, and a strong allergy to HOA meetings. Today, we're counting down the 10 most isolated places in the United States. From the frozen margins of Alaska to a small Michigan island with 0 cars and a moose population that clearly didn't get the memo. You think you know remote? Let's test that. Because then there's Hawks Rest, Wyoming, wrapped in nearly 20 miles of untouched wilderness in every direction. What nobody tells you is that some people hike in on purpose just to be alone. And whatever you think isolation looks like, you are not ready for Adak Island. Think abandoned Cold War facilities, no chain restaurants, and foxes that act like they own the place. Pick the wrong town and it could cost you your savings or your sanity. Subscribe if you're into deep rabbit holes, survival-level trivia, and strange towns you almost convince yourself to move to. By the end, you'll either want to vanish completely or start Googling cheap land in Hawaii County. Number 10, Plainview. Plainview has 1 police officer, 1 movie theater, 1 zip code, and somehow more taxidermy contests than traffic signals. At first glance, it looks like someone paused Nebraska halfway through loading. No towers, no skyline, just open sky in every direction. But here's the surprise. It's not dying. This town of just over 1,200 people is oddly stable. Crime is basically non-existent. Median home price sits around $95,000. Translation, you can buy a house. People stay. People arrive. Retirees, off-grid types, and folks who genuinely enjoy silence without pretending it's an aesthetic. Turns out Plainview isn't boring, it's tucked away. What no one warns you about is that when life slows down, your stress does too. Living here means trading convenience for calm. Forget good sushi. Rideshares don't exist. Your social circle now includes the mail carrier and whoever owns the loudest dog. You don't move to Plainview to escape people. You move here because they already did. Honestly, that could be the town motto. And can we talk about the wind? This place doesn't get gentle gusts, it gets assaulted. Snow falls sideways. Rain shows up horizontal. Lawn chairs take flight like low-budget horror movie villains. One wind blast stole my sandwich. I'm still not over it. So yes, Plainview is quiet, affordable, and strangely serene. Basically the polar opposite of TikTok. If you hate forced conversation and love the idea of owning 5 acres for the cost of a Brooklyn closet, this might be your paradise. Just don't expect nightlife, sushi, or anything that delivers after sunset. And if you think Plainview is quiet, wait until we reach a town where the entire population could fit inside a minivan. Number 9, Owyhee County. This corner of Idaho has more cattle than humans, more land than some countries, and cell service so weak you might as well be yelling into the void. Owyhee isn't really a town. It's a massive slice of the state that time seems to have forgotten. One of the largest counties in America by land area, yet only about 11,000 people spread across 7,600 square miles. That's roughly 1.5 people per square mile. You're statistically more likely to meet a coyote than a neighbor. Rent averages around $700 if you can even find a place. Cost of living sits nearly 20% below the national average. Jobs revolve around ranching, mining, or ranching again. It technically exists, sure, but it'll drop you in the middle of nowhere and calmly tell you to keep going straight. Straight where? Through a canyon, past wild horses, and directly into an existential spiral. Imagine this. You step out of your cabin at dawn and there's nothing. No engines. No voices. Just the sun lighting up red cliffs, boots crunching dirt, and a single confused deer silently judging your flannel. You're off-grid by choice, and nobody's messaging you about meetings. Be honest. Would you rather live somewhere packed wall to wall or somewhere almost empty? Drop it in the comments. Number 8, Reykjavik. There's a town in America where the sun disappears for 2 straight months and people don't leave. Reykjavik sits about 320 miles north of the Arctic Circle. There are no roads leading in or out. You fly here, or you don't come at all. Its reputation is intense cold, endless night, and polar bears that probably navigate better than your phone. And the polar night isn't a myth. Roughly 65 days without sunrise. Then summer flips the switch and the sun refuses to set. Midnight daylight. Insomnia, but scenic. Quick stats. Population around 4,400. Average winter temperatures hover near -20 Fahrenheit before wind chill decides to make it personal. Cost of living runs about 60 to 70% higher than the US average. Rent lands between $1,500 and $2,000 for very ordinary apartments. Jobs exist, but they're specific. Government roles, oil support, utilities, schools. Crime rates run higher than average, mostly nonviolent. Isolation does strange things to people. But here's the surprise. No one treats this place like a punishment. It's home, intentionally. What nobody tells you is when the world gets quiet, community gets louder. Groceries come in by plane. Milk can cost $7 to $9 a gallon. Fresh produce arrives jet-lagged. Online shopping just laughs and logs off. Somewhere between gusty and apocalyptic, Hawk Rest just keeps going. It's strange how some of the safest feeling places in America are also the ones where help is farthest away. Be honest. Could you live somewhere with no neighbors? Yes or no? Let's see how many people are lying to themselves. And if Hawk Rest feels lonely, the next place proves isolation can get even stranger. Like the video, because somewhere in Wyoming, a man just nodded silently and went back to fixing his fence. Subscribe, because one day you might accidentally move somewhere with no Wi-Fi, no neighbors, and no plan. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying it has. Music. Number 4, Adak. Adak looks like a town everyone left in a hurry and forgot to tell the buildings. It sits on the edge of the Aleutian Islands, closer to Russia than the nearest Costco. For decades, it was a major Cold War military base. At its peak, over 6,000 people lived here. Today, roughly 300 remain, spread among empty schools, abandoned runways, and apartment blocks built for a population that no longer exists. Here's the breakdown. Crime is extremely low, mostly non-violent and usually boredom-related. Cost of living runs about 35 to 40% above the national average. Rent, strangely cheap. $400 to $800 for entire apartments, simply because there's far more housing than demand. Jobs revolve around fishing, airport operations, city maintenance, and remote work for those who planned ahead. Quality of life is high for a certain type of mind and brutally difficult for everyone else. Surprisingly, Adak isn't collapsing. It's waiting. Quietly reshaping itself. What nobody tells you is places with too much history don't vanish. They echo. Financially, Adak is a paradox. Cheap rent, expensive everything else. Groceries come in by plane or barge, and weather delays are just part of life. Out here, small problems don't stay small for long. Isolation multiplies them. Emotionally, this place plays tricks on you. Not loneliness exactly, more like absence. You're surrounded by reminders of a busier past. Empty playgrounds. Dark apartment windows. A town that remembers when it mattered. So yes, Adak might be the only place where you can rent a 3-bedroom apartment and still feel like you're living inside a museum of unfinished stories. Let's talk about the weather. Not snow. Not rain. Sideways rain. The kind that ignores umbrellas and challenges your self-esteem. Wind arrives uninvited and never leaves. You don't check the forecast. You check whether today's the day your trash can ends up in the ocean. Picture waking up to fog drifting through silent streets. You make coffee in an apartment built for a military family back in the late 80s. Outside, seabirds argue with the wind like it's personal. It's quiet but not empty. And that quiet matches the numbers. Low crime. Cheap rent. High mental weight. And if Adak feels like a town paused in time, the next place proves isolation can cross borders and logic. Number 3, Point Roberts. Point Roberts is the only town in America you have to leave the country to reach. This small slice of Washington state is completely cut off from the rest of the U.S. by Canada. To get there by land, you exit America, pass through Canadian border control, then re-enter the U.S. Yes, it's legal. Yes, it's absurd. And yes, people live there. The basics. Population around 1,200, about half that in winter. Crime rate so low it's almost theoretical. Rent averages around $1,000 a month for cozy coastal homes. Cost of living higher than you'd expect, because everything has to be shipped in. Jobs come from tourism, border-adjacent work, remote careers, or the category labeled retired and here's the surprise. This strange little peninsula is beautiful. Forested shoreline, calm beaches, whales offshore, bald eagles overhead, and maybe 5 other humans to share it with. What nobody tells you is isolation isn't always rural. Sometimes it's geopolitical. Living here means complications. Online orders get confused. Emergencies depend on border hours. During COVID lockdowns, border closures turned Point Roberts into a real-life bottle episode. As one local put it, we're America's glitch. Beautiful. Quiet. And frequently forgotten, including by the Postal Service. So yes, Point Roberts might be the only town where a grocery run requires a passport and 2 international border crossings. And that somehow makes sense here. Quick rant. Imagine explaining your address to 3 governments, a confused delivery driver, and a guy named Ron who brings pizza on foot because it's faster than customs. Even your packages hesitate. Like, you sure about this? Now picture a quiet coastal morning. Fog lifting off the bay. Coffee on a porch overlooking 2 countries at once, knowing no one from either side is dropping by unexpectedly. It's peace, but with paperwork. Music. Number 2, Manawai. Manawai isn't just small. It's legally one person. And she's the mayor, the bartender, the librarian, and absolutely the town gossip. Manawai, Nebraska is the only incorporated town in the U.S. with a single resident. Her name is Elsie Eiler. She's in her 80s. She runs the bar, renews her own liquor license, collects taxes from herself, and yes, she's still doing it. Let's check the stats. Crime rate, 0, unless Elsie starts an argument with Elsie. Cost of living, whatever she decides it is. Rent, not applicable. There's one house. Job market, one job, and she has it. Quality of life depends entirely on how well you get along with yourself. Manawai is the purest example of if you want something done right, do it yourself, because there is literally no one else. What nobody tells you is that this place actually functions. It files reports. It has a zip code. The bar has regulars from nearby towns. Manawai isn't a ghost town. It's a one-woman production. Living here isn't loneliness. It's legacy. Elsie stayed when everyone else left. She chose it. While most of us are muting group chats, she put an entire town into solo mode. Only in America can one person be an entire municipal government and somehow be more efficient than a city council. And can we take a moment to appreciate the bureaucracy of one? This woman fills out forms to herself. Tax documents. License renewals. Grant applications. It's all her handwriting talking back to itself. She carries more civic responsibility than half of Congress, and she still opens the bar on time. And yes, she pours the beer too. Picture waking up in a town where you know every resident because that resident is you. You unlock the bar. You collect the mail. You decide whether today counts as library hours. No noise. No drama. Just quiet, a jukebox, and complete control over your own time. It's peaceful in a way that almost hurts to imagine. Remember when Point Roberts felt strange? Monowai looked at that and said, "That's cute. I'll handle everything myself." Fun detail. Elsie holds every elected position in town. She wins every election by a landslide unless her pen disagrees. And if Monowai redefined what a small town means, the final place on this list turns hard to reach into a full lifestyle. Buckle up for number 1. You don't arrive here. You descend. Number 1, Supai. There's a town in America where mail still arrives by mule. Not as a novelty. As a system. Supai sits 8 miles inside the Grand Canyon, far below the rim, in a place most visitors pass through briefly before leaving tired, sunburned, and loudly impressed. For the Havasupai people, this isn't a bucket list stop. It's home. There are no roads in. None. You hike, take a helicopter, or ride horseback. That's the list. Let's check the facts. Population roughly 200 to 300 residents. Crime extremely low, handled through community-based systems. Housing exists on tribal land only. No listings. No speculation. Cost of living is high because everything arrives by effort. Jobs revolve around tribal government, tourism, healthcare, and education. Quality of life trades convenience for connection. Supai isn't isolated because it failed. It's isolated because it chose not to bend. What nobody tells you is isolation feels different when it's inherited and intentional. Financially, everything takes work. Food. Building materials. Emergency care. Emotionally, you gain what most places lost. Continuity. Family. Land. Memory. So no, Supai doesn't have next-day shipping. But it does have waterfalls so unreal they look edited and neighbors who knew your grandparents long before you were born. And yes, let's talk about tourists. Some hike down with no water, bad shoes, and strong opinions. Then they're shocked. Shocked that the canyon is hot, steep, and doesn't care. This isn't a theme park with railings. It's a canyon. Act accordingly. Now imagine waking up to canyon walls glowing red at sunrise. Cold river water running past your feet. Quiet. Not empty quiet. Living quiet. No traffic. No schedules. Just time slowing down because it has nowhere else to go. That calm matches the reality. Low crime. Deep community. High effort. High meaning. Like the video, because somewhere out there, a mule just delivered this information by hand. Subscribe, because if you ever make one questionable life choice and find yourself hiking into a canyon without a plan, this channel counts as preparation. I'm not saying you'll move here. I'm just saying you'll never forget it. Supai is number 1 because it doesn't care about rankings at all. And honestly, that might be the whole point.